Okay, so now we're going to talk about our Tap Jig, and we have two versions, right? We have a quick disconnect and a standalone. And so before we jump into an overview of the tool, can you just give a brief explanation? What's the difference between the quick disconnect and the standalone?
Sure, absolutely. As RV technicians, this is a tool that you're going to find specific to our industry. We just finished talking about the test lead set where you're actually testing circuits, testing wire, current flow, voltage, and all this in a wire. But in an RV, you're going to be testing current and flow and pressure in an LP system. And so to do that, you need to tap into the LP system. The LP system is a gas-tight system, and we need to be able to get into that to see the flow of the propane and to see the pressure of the propane. And so to do that, I've made a bunch of different tap jigs that will tap into the different places where you might be diagnosing the propane. And so I made two versions of it. One is what we call a standalone tap jig, and one is what I call a quick disconnect tap jig. The standalone tap jig is where you just might need to have, you only ever are going to tap into a 3/8 flare fitting, and that's all you're ever going to tap into. And so I made that its own little standalone, that's all it ever is. The quick disconnect tap jig is something that if you're more of an RV technician like what we do, and you're tapping into a bunch of different things, there may be situations where you need to tap into several things multiple times. And so instead of connecting and reconnecting, connecting and reconnecting, I made a quick connect where you can set up all your jigs and then just move your manometer from jig to jig to jig. And so for the RV technician that's doing more, well, is it the gas valve? Is it the flow? What is it at the regulator? You put these jigs in all those different locations and you just move your manometer to the different locations. And so that's the quick disconnect version of this. You tap into it, you leave it while you're diagnosing it, versus a standalone, which is just a one-purpose use tool.
Okay, great. So if somebody is an RV technician, they're going to be tapping into a lot of different things. The quick disconnect may be more appropriate for them. Yeah. Would your average RV owner be able to tap into the LP, or are there some concerns with that system?
Yeah. RV owners tapping into their own LP does get into a little bit of a dicey, maybe even illegal realm. It's NFPA 1192 talks a lot about the LP in RVs. And I know for me, when we started our business in Texas, I had to go through extensive training, get a manager's license, become a certified LP technician to do anything with LP. And so even though we sell these tools, I don't know who's buying them, but check your state and find out if you are legally allowed to work on these systems. I know in Texas, if you were found to be working on LP systems and you are not licensed to be doing it, there's a big fine, and it's not worth it. So that's the little side note on this. So if you're going to be buying these tap jigs, we're assuming that you're taking the responsibility that you're licensed and ensured, that you really have been trained on how to do this. Having said that, now that we're on the other side of that little disclaimer here, what was the question again? Oh, who could use them?
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
So would it be appropriate for your average RV owner to use these tools?
So now that we've done our disclaimer on who should and should not and how different states view that, anybody could use this if they're trained. It's not technically difficult, but when you're making a gas-tight system, you really need to be aware of what that means and not blow yourself up and your neighbor. So anybody could use this. So let's say that an RV, you own an RV and you want to, let me put it this way. You have a tire gauge to check the air on your tires, and that's no big deal. Well, then you would maybe need a way to check the pressure in your LP system. That's something that should be checked every year, and pretty much every year there's always a little adjustment you need to make. The regulator is rated for 10 years. After 10 years, you should replace that regulator. There's a butyl rubber thing inside of it that fatigues over time. And we did a whole video on how to inspect your regulator and that vent and aiming down and the ice getting inside. And so anybody could use this. If you're a DIY RVer and you've had some training, then you might just need the standalone. If you're an RV technician and you're doing a lot of this kind of work, then we designed it so that you might need the quick disconnect. If you're an RV tech and you're just doing PDI, that's all you're doing is just PDIs, then a standalone might be something they might need.
Okay.
Because they're only going to ever check it at that one spot only, and just make sure that the pressure's right, and maybe at the stove bud, and it's going to move it off the lot. So
Okay.
again, we designed it in a bunch of, we've got 11 different variants here between the two tools, and again, it's like a la carte. You just buy what you need and accessorize it as you need to.
Great, great. So anybody can use it. You'll know whether or not the quick disconnect or the standalone is best for you, just knowing what you're going to be needing to tap into and how often. But everybody should be familiar with and trained on how to test LP, and don't do it carelessly.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we want to keep you around and not blow things up. Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and show the standalone, maybe show each of those and just go over each of the features of that. And the quick disconnect would be the same idea. We have the same taps for each of those,
Sure.
right? It's just the quick disconnect.
We can go through those a little bit quicker.
Just go through. So we'll
So
go over...
I'll introduce them to you, and you guys can watch along as we go. So the first one we're going to start with is what we call our stand-alone tap jigs. Okay, and my absolute favorite of all of them would be this guy right here. Okay, and so where I like to check if I'm just going to do an LP pressure. Now there's 3 tests you need to perform. The first one is called the operating pressure test. The second one is a regulator lockout test, and the third one is a leak test. Okay. And so I'm not going to get into what those are or how to do them. I'm assuming you know how to do all that, okay? But there's 3 tests you need to perform. And so where I like to perform the test is at the refrigerator gas line. I'm going to be turning the propane cylinders on and off several times during the test. The refrigerator usually has like a vibration loop or something on the LP line. It's easy to get in there. I got a big space to put my tools. And so on that refrigerator, I always know it's 3/8. I'm going to take that 3/8 flare nut off, and I'm going to connect this right into that gas line that is feeding the refrigerator, okay? And so, again, I don't want to get into the details on how to do the tests. I'll have another video on that. Here, I'm just wanting to talk about this. So with this 3/8 flare, this is where your manometer would connect to, right here. So I didn't bring my manometer, but again, you should know what a manometer is and how to use it. Okay, I'm gonna stress that. Okay, maybe we'll do a video on how to do that, but I want to be careful. You need to go to training if you don't even have a clue what I'm talking about. When I built this, I came up with the manometer. They always had these little barbs on the end, and the manometer has like a rubber hose that you would always connect to the barb. And if you've done this as many times as I have, the hose starts to fatigue. So I came up with this quick connect type thing, okay? And so when I send it to you, or when we send it to you, I'm going to send it with this little tie wrap and a little red cap just to keep the end clean. This part will go on the end of your manometer. So instead of connecting your manometer to the barb every single time, you're just connected to that barb one time, and then take your tie wrap just to cinch your hose down. Okay, and then your manometer will just have that little red cap on the end of it. Okay, so now it comes time to use your test lead, and then you take your little red cap.
You mean your tap jig?
Yeah, your tap jig. Yeah, thank you. And then here's your manometer. You just connect it, and you have a gas tight fitting right there. So all of our test leads have that feature. That's why I spent a few minutes going through that feature right there. And so now we've got a clear tube. I went with clear, and then they're clamped. We have tapped into our flare fitting, 3/8 flare, and then I have a number 41 hole on this side. I have started to, so all these are sealed with thread locker that is rated for gas. So you can't take this apart unless you heat it up. But the end where there's a number 41 hole, I did use Rector Seal number 5, because if you're working on smaller RVs, you might need a smaller size hole. Okay, now I'm going to be putting it on our resources page and making it available, a sheet that gives you the size hole corresponding with the BTU rating. Okay, in the RV industry, a 41 hole is standard, so that's why I drilled 41 holes here. But the ones we're making now, this plug is removable. You can drill your own hole and put your other plug back in. Like, for example, if you're just doing truck campers, or if you're doing pop-up campers, or it's just a really low flow, you might need to do a smaller hole. And so then we have a gas valve here where you can open and close to allow the LP through your hole to do your 50% load test. Okay, and so this one here, so I spent a little bit more time on this than we will on the others, but I just wanted to show you some of the common features. So let me put all this. This is how you're going to get it. I'm going to just stick your little yellow tie wrap in there, and then I'll just kind of, that's how you're going to get it. Okay, you'll figure out how to get that. So this one is the standalone tap jig that I use for 3/8 flares. Okay, now, some of you, your older Winnebagos, they're going to have a 1/2 inch flare, not a 3/8. And so what we've got for you guys is this adapter that is 1/2 inch flare to a 3/8 flare, and it's a female flare. This is a male flare. You screw it on, and now you've just made this whole standalone tap jig a 1/2 inch flare. How about that?
Great.
Okay, because not everybody's going to have 3/8, but that goes back to why I like checking it at the refrigerator, because the refrigerators are pretty much always 3/8. But some of your stoves and stuff might be the 1/2. So this one is the standalone. Okay.
3/8 inch flare.
3/8 inch standalone. Okay. Now let's go to. That's my go-to. That's one my everyday carry. I use that all the time. Now another place where you might want to check for the leak test portion of the 3 tests you perform is at the stove bud. And now you cannot do the regulator lockout test, and you cannot do the operating pressure test from a stove bud, because if you lift up your stove hood, there's another regulator right there that's going to give you a false reading. You could do it at the stove, but you need to tap into it before that regulator. But if you're doing a leak test, then I make this one. All this part's the same with the manometer part. Same hole here, same valve. But this one's got a 3H tube. You pull the thing off, and that little part right there connects directly to the stove bud. You have to take your little burner out of the way, and then this connects directly onto that stove bud. You could turn your stove burner on and get your pressure that way. So when you're doing PDIs, this is, so like if all you're doing is PDIs, doing leak tests, this might be all you need, just this one. Okay, so far so good?
Yeah.
Okay, now another one we might do is, this was another one that I make. You might be troubleshooting an appliance that you need to read the flow. So those will do pressure, but you might need to do regular flow or pressure through a gas valve. And so what I've got here is an 1/8 of an inch national pipe thread fitting, which is on most of your regulator test ports, all of your gas valve test ports, is this port right here. So you would put some rector seal, some yellow rector seal on this. And so I don't want you screwing this whole assembly around and around and around. Guess what Darren did? Yay! I made a quick disconnect. So now you can take just this little piece, put your wrench right there, put your rector seal on it, and tighten this into the test port of the gas valve. And then once you get that in, then you would take the rest of the jig and connect it. Here's your manometer, here's your 41 hole.
Great.
Okay, and then I put little rubber caps on all the threads to keep it clean. So there's a gas valve tap. Okay, you might need to test it at the regulator itself. So you're checking, you want to see if it goes through the regulator. And so this one here is what I would call the regulator tap. So basically you would take that black hose that comes out of your regulator, you would screw this in its place, rector seal on the end of this, you'd screw that black hose here, and now you are checking, your manometer connects here, you're checking it through the regulator, and here you could do your test right out the end is there. So this one would connect in line with a regulator where your black hose is connected directly to your regulator right here. This is one that I've come up with where, just like with the regulator pass-through, you might need to get one that's in line. Now here I've got 3/8. Again, we've got the adapters to make this go to 1/2 inch. So that's a 3/8 female flare, 3/8 male flare, and you would put this in line with your copper tubing, number 41 hole, manometer right there. And so that would be a pass-through. So every one that we just went through is a standalone. You don't have to have anything else. You just need this and then connect your manometer to it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's your standalones.
Great.
Okay, so we just talked about the standalone test leads. So now we'll talk about the quick connect test leads. And I'll take a few minutes to show you how the quick disconnect works, and then we'll just zip through the fittings. And so this is a situation where you might have, and this is a typical situation where on the standalones we talked about the tapping directly into a gas valve and then tapping directly into, let's say I need to do a flow thing. So this one, it would be one that you would connect on a regulator. Okay, so I want to know what my pressure and my flow is at the regulator. And then this one right here is an 1/8 inch. I might connect this directly into a gas valve to see the flow. And then I might compare the difference between what is it leaving the regulator and what is it at the gas valve. And so what I've got here is these, you'll recognize these guys. This is the same kind of a fitting that your barbecue, like some of you have outside kitchens and they have the barbecue connection on it. So it's the same fitting, it's the same hose thing. And so all the self-contained ones, the flare fitting, the burner bib, the gas line, the regulator pass-through, and I have them also as quick connect. Okay, so I'm not going to go over the business end of it. I'll just go over the quick connect and we'll just get through this. So the quick connect, I got the kind that has the on-off valve because this has been helpful when I'm actually tapped into an appliance. So my hand is the gas valve and I'm tapped into the gas valve. I want to turn that off, okay? Even though it's like an air chuck in a shop, even though if this, we could have gotten them without this lever, but I just didn't want to take the chance. And so the lever allows me to lock it on. It's just an extra safety thing. All of these fittings, every single one of the fittings that I make are all NFPA 1192 rated. Okay, so if you go to the NFPA 1192, I don't know which chapter it's in, they're all designed exactly to that rating. Okay, so all the tap jigs have this. The quick connect ones have this same quick connect feature on the end. It's the business end that's different. So here we have the gas valve. Here we would have I'd go with right angle. I could have gone straight, but sometimes it's nice to get in there and then have the tool stick out the side here. So that's a 3/8 flare. And that adapter we had, which adapts the 3/8 to 1/2 inch, you've needed that a time or two. This one would be one that connects directly into a regulator to do the flow going through a regulator. And a lot of times I'll go through a regulator and I'll check it out the gas port to see if there's any restriction between the line between where it leaves and where I'm working on it. Here is the one where it's the pass-through on a 3/8 line. And then we have the quick connect for the stove. Another way I might use this one is I'll put this on the stove bud, that little clear part right there, and I'll have this ready to go. And then I might have the pass-through connected on the stove right before the stove regulator, and then I'll take it off the stove regulator, connect it here. So I have these both facing up at me, and I can check it before the regulator and after the regulator and find out if the regulator on the stove has gone bad. So these are all different tools. As technicians, we run into LP problems, and they allow us to tap into them. With the quick connect, I can leave these here and do my testing. I can run to the front, see what the pressure is, leaving the regulator, run to the gas valve that I'm working on, the refrigerator, furnace, water heater, check what it is there, and see what the difference is between what is leaving, what it is at the point. Check it at the stove. So then this is the other piece that's missing. This was what I would call my main jig assembly. So this would be the male part of the quick disconnect, and I'll just grab one here, and it just connects right there. Pretty simple. So your manometer would connect on here, just like on our standalone, number 41 hole here, and we've got the lever to open and close it. And then when you're all done, I put dust caps on everything to keep everything nice and clean, keep all the debris out. And so there's a quick disconnect, and that's how you would use a quick disconnect to just connect all your jigs and then move your manometer from place to place and compare notes and things.
Okay, and so if somebody wanted to buy this product, they would start with the main assembly.
Buy it all at one time. No.
They would start with the main assembly, and they can pick and choose which taps they want.
Yes.
And if later they want to add more taps, they can just go and buy the individual taps by themselves. So standalone, they would just buy the individual standalone, whichever ones they want. The quick disconnect, they would start with the main tap assembly, add whichever taps they want. And if they wanted to start with 1 or 2, they could do that and come back later, buy more.
Exactly, yes.
Great.
Exactly what Tricia said. So if you're going to do the standalone, it's its own one-time deal. But if you're going to do this, you might have plans on just getting the one that taps into a gas line. And then, well, you know, maybe I need to get this one too. And so we've set it up where it's a la carte. You just buy what you need when you need it.
Great.
But if you can do the quick disconnect one, you do at least need the main manometer feature. And now the quick disconnect feature does cost a little bit more than the standalone because all these little fittings cost more. The quick disconnect features cost more, but the rest of it is just pretty much the same. So
all right, thank you. Well,
yay!
People should go out and buy that too.
Yes. Now we do have a couple accessories that we throw in on the website.
Not for free.
Yeah, not for free. And one was the one we already talked about, which was this adapter. And then I'll say this, in my early, we'll have these available until they're out of stock. Okay. Some of my earlier versions of this LP Tap Jig, I was using these custom-made extensions. And they were great, and then I realized I came up with a better solution, so I redesigned it. So we do have several of these available. Now, why would you use these? I put the, again, the 3/8 flare 90 at the end, and that sometimes you'll work on a refrigerator, and they've got those things pretty far into the RVE. You'll work on some where they put them sideways. And I needed this to be at the business end of it, but my tool needed to connect way out here. So that gave me a little bit more length just to work on it. And because I standardized on the this type of connector, they even have hoses that are 5 feet, 12 feet for your outside grill that have the quick connect as well. So I've never needed to use this, but when I designed it, I was thinking of other ways that people could use this. So you might have your tool outside and then you're on the inside with, so you would use the quick connect one. You would take your grill hose, which has quick connect features, and I think there's a 5-foot one, a 10-foot one, a 15. I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about if you've got the outside grill. Quick connect here, run it through a window or door where your manometer is, and then you can do some testing that way as well. So I've thought of all the different possible ways that I have worked on LP, and I've tried to make it simple, and that's where we came up with the LP Tap Jig. And I'm always coming up with new ideas, so don't be surprised if I come up with one a year from now, a new idea. Oh, I got to tap into LP that way too. So that's both the standalone and the quick connect.
Awesome.
All right.
Go out and buy it and some accessories.
Yes. And remember, happy campers say,
my RV works.
Yay! All right, we did it.
All right.
Boom. Okay. Thanks, guys.